Putin has just wrapped up his address. What did we learn specifically, Guy?
Well, this wasn't exactly a speech long on de-escalation talk. President Putin made it very clear that Crimea would be joining the Russian Federation. He talked about the fact that Russia felt robbed when Crimea was handed over to the Ukraine by Khrushchev. He said that Russia felt robbed by the breakup of the Soviet Union. He talked about the fact that Crimea had effectively done what it was supposed to do and applied to join the Russian Federation. It's always been part of Russia. He talked about the fact as well that there is an absolute majority inside the Crimea that wanted to join Russia. And he said when it came to the referendum over the weekend that all diplomatic norms were observed.
17 марта в Крыму состоялся референдум.
We had a referendum which took place in the Crimea, fully consistent with all norms of international law. More than 82% of voters took place, and more than 96% of those who voted for reunification with Russia.
He talked about the fact that Crimea was an integral part of Russia. He also said, and this is interesting, that the move that Russia made effectively saved this peninsula from NATO. And I think now we're beginning to get to the heart of the concerns that President Putin has. This speech was very long on history. That really was the justification for the decision to accept Crimea into the Russian Federation, or re-accept the Crimean Peninsula into the Russian Federation. It's about NATO. It's about the long-term rivalry that exists between Moscow and NATO. And I think that's what it ultimately boils down to, Betty.
Guy, how is this playing in Russia?
Well, I think this is playing in Russia pretty well, to be honest. When you play the nationalist card, it's quite hard to argue against a series of standing ovations during that joint session of Parliament. So nationalism quite hard to argue against, and you listen to some of the language coming out of President Putin's mouth, it was very strong. The nationalist agenda was very, very clear. But we are obviously seeing some concern about what's happening to the economy. That really is going to be a slightly longer-term game, though the fact that the ruble has been under pressure is something that the average man on the street and woman on the street in Russia will recognise very, very quickly. But at the moment, this is being seen as a win for Putin and a positive for Russia.